Hello and welcome. One of the toughest parts of being a founder is sifting through all the data from your experiments and trying to figure out what to do next. So today, we're going to dive deep into that. We're going to build a system, something I like to call a certainty engine, that's designed to take all that guesswork and turn it into real confident decisions.
So picture this. You've just wrapped up a big experiment. Maybe it was a week of customer interviews, or you just finished a landing page test. You've got pages of notes, a spreadsheet full of numbers, but now what? You're just kind of staring at it all, wondering, did I actually learn anything useful here? It's a frustrating feeling, and trust me, every single founder has been right there.
Well, today we are trading that confusion for absolute clarity. Here's our roadmap. We're going to start by building our certainty engine. Then we'll talk about fueling it with good data. From there, we'll turn that raw data into powerful insights, face the moment of truth, and then, most importantly, figure out how to choose our next move, even if that means making a really tough call, like a pivot.
Okay, let's get into it. The first step is to change how you think about this whole process. I want you to think of it as your certainty engine. Seriously, it's a reliable, repeatable machine you build right into the heart of your startup. You feed it ambiguity and questions, and what comes out the other side? Confident, data-backed decisions. And at the core of this engine is a really simple but incredibly powerful three-step cycle. Build, measure, learn. You build an experiment to test out a big idea. You measure the results without any bias. And then, this is the most important part, you learn from that outcome to figure out what you're going to build next. This loop right here is your secret weapon for making real progress.
Right, so every engine needs fuel, and our certainty engine is no different. The fuel is high-quality data from experiments you run the right way. So let's talk about how to actually capture your results properly. Because if the fuel is bad, the engine's not going to run.
First things first, when is an experiment actually over? It's so easy to see a few good signs and get excited, or see a few bad ones and get discouraged and just pull the plug early. But doing that can give you totally misleading data. So when do you officially call it a day?
Luckily, the rules are super simple and clear. You stop when the time you decided on beforehand is up, or you stop when you've clearly hit or clearly missed your success goal, or, when you just have enough solid data to make a confident call. That's it. No more, no less.
And here's a pro tip for you. This is a big one. You have to resist that urge to stop the second you think you see a trend. Try to let at least 80% of your planned experiment run its course. This is how you make sure your data is a real signal, not just some random fluke. Now, using a structure like this is absolutely crucial. It forces you to think with discipline, instead of just having messy, scattered notes everywhere. This is actually why we built our tool, FounderScope, in the first place, to enforce this kind of rigor. It's like a dashboard that makes you boil everything down into a clear outcome, actionable learnings, defined next actions, and of course, the raw evidence to back it all up. Just capturing the data is only half the battle. Turning it into a real insight, well, that's where the magic really happens. The quality of how you write up your learnings literally determines whether an experiment was a priceless lesson or just a complete waste of your time. Just look at the difference here. On the left, interviews went well. What does that even mean? It's a feel-good statement that tells you absolutely nothing. But the learning on the right? Wow. It's specific. It has numbers. It tells you what worked and what didn't. It points you directly at the next problem to solve, your pricing. This is the level of detail you have to aim for. And please don't forget about the qualitative data. Capturing direct quotes from your customers is like striking gold. This one sentence here tells you so much more about the customer's real feelings than any spreadsheet ever could. It's the why behind all the numbers, and you absolutely need it to build something people will actually love.
All right, so you've captured your results, you've written down some killer learnings. Now comes the moment of truth. It's time to make a decision. Was your hypothesis right or was it wrong?
And really, it's a simple yes or no question. If you met the success goals you set out at the beginning, your assumption is validated. Awesome. That means you can move on to the next step on your roadmap. If you didn't, it's invalidated. But listen, that doesn't mean you failed. It just means it's time to decide, do we make a small tweak or do we need a bigger change?
And that's the whole point, right? The output of every single experiment, whether it was validated or not, is a strategic action. The learning loop doesn't just end with some analysis on a spreadsheet. It ends when you decide what you are going to do next.
Okay, I really want to pause here for a second, because this is a huge mindset shift. Seeing that big invalidated result can feel like a punch to the gut. I get it. But an invalidated experiment is not a failure. In fact, it might be one of the most valuable things that can happen to your startup.
This quote from Eric Ries just says it all, doesn't it? The real failure isn't finding out you were wrong. The real failure is staying wrong for months or even years, just burning through all your time and money on an idea that was never going to work.
Think about it this way. An invalidated hypothesis is a massive return on your investment. It saves you from wasting engineering hours on the wrong features. It saves marketing money you would have spent on the wrong message. It stops you from building something nobody wants to buy. It's literally the cheapest and fastest way to find the right path forward.
So sometimes invalidation just points to a small tweak, but other times it's a signal that you need a much bigger change, a pivot. And this isn't some move you make out of panic. It's a deliberate, strategic decision that's driven by all the data you've worked so hard to collect.
So how do you make that call? Use a framework, not just your gut feeling. Look, if one experiment fails, don't panic. Keep trying. If you have 2 or 3 failures all around the same core idea, okay, maybe it's time to change your approach. But if your most critical foundational assumptions are failing over and over again, then yes, it is absolutely time to seriously talk about a pivot.
And let's just be super clear about what a pivot actually is. It is not just changing the color of a button. A pivot is a structured course correction. You are creating a brand new, fundamental hypothesis about your product or your strategy or your growth model, and then you start the build, measure, learn loop all over again to test it.
So after every single learning cycle, it all comes down to one of these 3 choices. You persevere if the data looks good. You tweak if you were close but need a small adjustment. Or you pivot if the evidence is just overwhelming that your core strategy isn't working.
And this, right here, is exactly why having a dedicated system is so critical. Our platform, FounderScope, was built from the ground up to be the single source of truth for this entire journey. It connects your big assumptions to your little experiments, your raw data to your key learnings, and your learnings to your next big move, even pivots. Nothing ever gets lost. Your most valuable asset, which is what you've learned, is all protected and organized, ready to power every decision you make in the future.
So I'm going to leave you with this one question. Forget about the 100 things on your to-do list for a second. What is the single most critical assumption, the one belief that your entire business is built on, that you need to go out and test next? Go find it, build an experiment, and get that certainty engine of yours running. You can do this.